and I made 17 grand off that deal. And I was like, wow, I can do this.
How did your journey start?
I was just talking to people all day.
You can mention that you're part of large investing network.
We get a lot of deals that other people don't because we do put in that time. You know, we might be on the phone for an hour with this person several times.
Shout out to Women Real Estate Investing Network.
I'd say pushing through the hard stuff and following up are the two big things that have made me successful in this.
Okay, guys, this is Yuri with iSpeedtoLead and Deal Speed, and today I'm very excited to have Lauren sharing some of the insights how to close more deals in general, and particular her success with iSpeedtoLead. Lauren, how's it going?
Good, thank you.
So, do you mind sharing a little bit more about yourself? How did you start in real estate, and what's the story?
Yeah, so I've always wanted to get into real estate investing, but kind of always thought just the typical you had to have 20% down and just never made it happen. So 2 years ago, I found the Rain, a network of women that does this, and I learned all about wholesaling and flipping and short-term rentals and long-term rentals. And so 2 years ago, I started diving into it, but it's been a little over a year that I went full-time specifically for wholesaling.
Okay, and let's give some shout out to the community you're part of. So, as if people don't know, I think confirm. Yeah, I think it's the biggest and the largest woman real estate investing community. Correct?
I believe so. I'm pretty sure that's correct. It's very big.
Great. So, what would you say was the biggest, the coolest thing that you learned, or like maybe what were like aha moments, or what was like really particular things that really help you out?
I think what was huge from that community, and I'm still in it, is that they taught me so many different ways to get into real estate investing. They taught all the marketing, but then wholesaling and flipping and short-term rentals and midterm rentals. And so there's just so many different ways to get into real estate investing, specifically the residential world. And then just had all the training there and the coaches that I needed. And I'd say, all right, I got this deal. Now what do I do? And they
Okay.
just held my hand through that process of learning.
Okay, this is great. So, and my understanding, you already closing deals, so you have already some experience. So, what's the value community brings to you right now? Let's say after you learn some things, what are your typical uses for the community right now?
I think for me, I still will sell some of my deals to ladies in the community. I think I did 3 or 4 last year to them. I also, if I'm going to do a flip, there's quite a lot of private money lenders in there. So I'll put my deals in and say, hey, looking for funding for this deal. And then I think just the sense of community of like, hey, I'm struggling with this. What do you think? Or reading other ladies' success stories and being like, oh my gosh, okay, on a hard day, seeing someone else's success reminds me I can do this. So I think just having that sense of, especially women around me, encouraging me, being able to bounce off questions and things like that.
No, this is awesome, and I just want to emphasize on the importance of communities, especially. Let's say you make your calls, and you can mention that you're part of large investing network, and it will put you in a better spot for the seller rather than somebody who is not a part of the network, and you can leverage that, even though maybe you never close deals.
Yes.
So, and I always emphasize on for everybody, to use who you are and your core advantages to position yourself better with the seller. And we're gonna talk a little bit more about that because we're gonna talk about coupon club leads. So, and that's why it's very important, to position a little bit different. So, do you remember what was your first deal ever that you closed? Like, what was that like?
The first deal ever was a single wide mobile home in the middle of nowhere of Florida that I should not have been able to wholesale. And I did. And I made 17 grand off that deal. And I was like, wow, I can do this. I think I can really do this.
Okay. No, this is great. So, which you mentioned Florida, middle. I already asked you. I know you are, but for our people who are gonna watch, so where are you based, and what is your primary areas for operations right now?
So I'm based in a tiny town in the Panhandle of Florida, a little bit north of Panama City. But because I'm so rural here, I decided to invest back in East Tennessee, which is where I'm from, and all my family's there, and I have a lot of connections there, and just has become a hot spot since COVID. Nashville got real full and people started moving into East Tennessee. So that is right now where I'm primarily focused on wholesaling.
And primarily you would wholesale, correct? You less focus on flipping, you are more pushing on wholesaling. Any particular reason why other than convenience, or because you mentioned you did some flips before, right? So
Yeah, so I did a short-term rental. I've done 2 flips, I guess. Actually, one was kind of a wholesale, so a real quick flip. And what I noticed for me was just it took my focus away from wholesaling, and I'm doing really well at wholesaling, and I've got great connections. And so I just find I'm actually able to work less hours and make more money if I just stay focused on the one thing. And if a great flip fell in my lap, I would still do it if the numbers were amazing. But right now, I find that for me personally, just focusing on the one thing has made me really good at it. And, I'm really known in my community for being an excellent wholesaler. So I've got end buyers coming to me at all times. And so it's just worked for where I'm at in life.
appreciate you sharing that. And you mentioned you are great in wholesaling, and even other people acknowledge that. So what do you think, like maybe top 2 or 3 things that makes you maybe better than everybody else? And I know in wholesaling everybody thinks he's great, but what do you think makes you great?
I'm actually not a particularly pushy or salesy person. With my sellers, I'm very kind and I listen and I'm very empathetic and I ask a lot of questions and I do genuinely care about them and where they are. With my end buyers, I think what sets me aside is I'm very administrative and organized. So I don't just get them locked in on an assignment, a contract, and then drop them. Like I communicate with them once or twice a week. I communicate with the title company almost daily. I communicate with the sellers once or twice a week. So everyone is kept very in the loop and I go out of my way to make sure everyone's taken care of and that it's a really easy experience for everyone. And therefore my end buyers are constantly, I'm getting texts like, do you have anything right now? Do you have anything right now? I'm just very honest and very kind, which is just kind of naturally how I am anyway. So I just let that shine through in my business. And I do really think that's been a huge part of me succeeding and people doing deals with me because they can feel that, that I'm being honest and kind.
I think since we talk about women real estate investing network, and I'm not inside, obviously. So what would you say are maybe what is easier for ladies to do over the phone to close deals, and what are the things maybe harder just for anybody watching? I think I understand some basic things, but first of all, I don't want to talk about this. I want you to share a little bit more about that. But for our people who are gonna watch that, what do you think those things are? And I'm pretty sure you are trained on some things too on that.
Yeah, I mean, again, I think women are good at listening and well, we are good at talking too, but I think we're good at almost reading between the lines sometimes and realizing like, oh, what they're telling me doesn't really seem like the problem and knowing how to ask the right questions to get to the heart of the matter. Because when you connect with the sellers at a heart level, I mean, I can't tell you how many sellers have gone with me and my partner Anna simply because like you're the first person that's treated me like a human. You've been so kind to me. I feel like you're a friend. I think one of our weaknesses with that though is we often end up on the phone a long time with people. And so we put a lot of time into it, but we get a lot of deals that other people don't because we do put in that time. We might be on the phone for an hour with this person several times, them talking about who knows what, but they do know we do genuinely care. Like we will keep in touch with sellers even after we close the deal. We check in on them because we truly care about them succeeding and not only helping them through a tough situation, but that they actually get out of it, and make some progress forward.
This is great. And actually, we just had the length of conversation is probably one of the things that people miss, especially if it's genuine conversation, because we just had recently even some of our guys talking about that. Yeah, you gotta be a little bit longer, especially if you will be definitely lower than the person maybe wants, to soften
Yes.
it up, talk about this. And yeah, I agree that probably ladies are better in showing general care as well, rather than like this is a transaction. And there are different styles to this too. I heard also some styles where you should be like a buyer, you don't need the property, and like you just treat it this way. I'm 50-50 on that. Speaking of closing like potentially any leads, do you do any other exit strategies like innovations, creative finance, anything like that? Did you consider? Yes, no, why not?
I did consider, and I've been trained in them, and I've offered them a couple of times, but where I kind of landed at was like, I'm really good at cash deals. I'm really good, like you said, like they say 150, I come in at 100, but because I'm kind and I tell them the truth of why I'm at that spot, I often get the deal at the number, I need. And so the novations and the sub twos and all the creative, I think are amazing. I just don't think it's my strength. And occasionally, if a deal doesn't work for cash, I'll look at the other options, but I've done one owner finance deal. But everything else I've done has just been cash. And again, it's just kind of what has worked for me. And not that I'm not willing to change or try different, but I also know I'm really good in the lane I'm in. And so I'm not trying to hop in other lanes that I'm not so great at.
Back to our ladies. So what do you think, like maybe newer people, maybe less experienced or maybe less successful people than you are, what kind of mistakes they do? If you talk about, I don't know, men or women, but in particular you see maybe based on your community, what are like maybe 3 things?
I think one huge one is not pressing through when it's really hard. Like this is not an easy line of work, it's really hard and it's stressful sometimes. And so I think when stuff gets hard, people quit. And especially I've seen some ladies in my group and there's outside life stuff, like my dad died or this happened or that happened. And I think it happens to all of us. And so making sure to keep pressing through even in those moments, because everyone has hard stuff. And that doesn't mean you don't take a break and deal with whatever's there, but you do have to press through. And I think too is follow up. I notice a lot of ladies, especially or newer people in general into real estate investing, don't follow up on leads. And I follow up. And eventually they're like, sometimes it's 6 months later, sometimes it's 9 months later, sometimes it's 18 months later. But usually if they had an issue, even if they got it fixed initially, it will probably come back in another form or the same form, and they will need help eventually. So I'd say pushing through the hard stuff and following up are the 2 big things that I've noticed really have made me successful in this.
And those are great. And I'll ask 2 quick follow-up questions then. So when you talk about pushing through hard things, let's ask you, how did you do that? Did you have such situation or moment? And how did you handle that? And also, I also understand I just had a webinar. I was talking about importance of time, especially for ladies, because there's so many things. A lot of them are single moms.
Yes.
Stay home, can be a job, children, lots of other things that's happening. So did you have like any of that type of moments for yourself? How did you overcome that? Or was it like discipline? Okay, let me just put at least 1 hour for work, but I'm at least steady. Or what was your situation? If you had one. If you didn't, good for you.
Yeah, I think as far as like doing the hard stuff, I had no plan B. Like I had a small online business I had sold. I had a little tiny cushion to live off of for not very long. And so mentally I was in a headspace of like, this has to work. So I have to make these hard phone calls. I have to confront this person. I have to do the really hard stuff because my family needs the money. And honestly, I'm actually glad I had that motivation of not having a fallback plan, because I think is what made me successful. And now what used to be hard and what used to keep me up at night isn't so stressful anymore, because I've just gotten used to the nature of this business and this job and this career I've chosen. I do still get stressed out, but not nearly what I used to. I also have a great husband who, if I'm really stressed or struggling or something's really hard, I bounce it off of him and he gives me great advice. And he reminds me, like, you've done a ton of these deals, Lauren. You got this.
Okay.
And then as far as being a mom, my husband and I have really done a good job tag teaming. We both have our own businesses from home. We both homeschool and we have 60 acres and we homestead. So we have just had to really work with each other on our schedules. So I work usually like 7 a.m. to noon, sometimes a few hours in the afternoon if I have to. He works afternoon, evenings. And I did realize I wasn't successful in real estate till I gave it my 100%. I mean, I'm a mom, yes, but I wasn't trying to juggle this other business. I had to let that go and really dive into this. And like I've told you, like I narrowed my focus down to wholesaling and 3 counties because I knew my mental capacity, I needed a really narrow focus. And that's just works for me personally and my lifestyle.
Appreciate you sharing that. And I think a lot of people relate to that too. And speaking of follow-ups, so let's talk a little bit more about that part. So what's your system right now? You get leads. Do they go to CRM? Are there some drip campaigns? Is it just more on the manual side? How do you manage your follow-ups right now? And how long do you follow up?
I do this all wrong according to the big wholesalers. I don't have I don't have an official CRM. I actually am in Google Sheets still. And I know that sounds crazy. I have a partner, and then we have one girl that works for us that does kind of our long-term follow-up. So we have a very simple system. I have upgraded, thought about switching over, built custom CRM, and then just didn't. It honestly just got too complicated. And like I told you before, our strength is just being really kind and really genuine. And so I'm sure drip campaigns, I'm sure auto texting and all those things would be very beneficial to me. But I don't know if it's as beneficial to us as it is other wholesalers who maybe aren't as personable or spend a lot of time with our sellers. Because after our first phone call, they love us. Now, whether they go with us or not, they might not, but there's no, like, when we shoot a text after that to follow up, like, hey, I was just thinking about your daughter. I know she was in the hospital last time we talked. How's she doing? Did it end up working out with that other wholesaler? If not, just let me know. I was just thinking about you guys. I hope you're doing okay. And it's hard to do that. It's hard to communicate. At least I haven't found a way to communicate that kind of stuff in automation. So we have no automation at all. And then we follow up until they say stop. Usually I'll even still follow up after that one more time, or until it's closed with another wholesaler. If they tell me they have it under contract, I ask what the closing date is, and I'll follow up a few days before that closing date to see if they're still on track. But I mean, so far, I think the longest follow-up we have right now is like 18 months, but it's like sort of an every 6-month check-in. So we'll go for a long time.
But you have a system and some process that you go. Okay. So
yeah, we do have a system within our little small team, but we are not automated.
So how was your journey with leads? Okay, let's talk a little bit more about that. So I know you use multiple paid PPL right now that with different levels of success, and we're going to talk about iSpeedtoLead, of course. So how did your journey start? Did you come right away to PPL? Did you try anything else when you just started, or how was that?
I had $300 a month in my marketing budget. So I cold call. All I had money for was pulling lists and skip tracing. So I cold called a lot, which I don't even think I got a single deal from that. But what I loved about it is I learned to talk to sellers for really cheap. So I wasn't spending a lot of money on leads, and I was just talking to people all day. So I learned for basically free how to talk really well on the phone and what people needed to hear and what questions to ask. And then after I did start to buy a couple paid per leads a month, like not enough to get a contract. But after I got that first deal, I did reinvest it into PPL and some mailers. And I got a second deal off of mailers. And again, I just started reinvesting that money so I could up my marketing budget every month. But I've been exclusively PPL for probably a little over a year now.
Mm-hmm.
And I occasionally throw out bandit signs. I'll occasionally try mailers, but I just keep coming back to the PPL. It's just simple. My KPIs are really good. So it's not like it's costing me more over time. Like I'm still kind of at the same marketing budget to get the deals I need. And so it really works for me because it's not hard. I just set my bids or whatever I do for the different company, and my leads come in and we make the calls.
Okay. So, and just for the timelines, so you started, you call. So for how long did you call?
I probably cold called for a year, but exclusively about 6 months. That was all I was doing, was cold calling.
Okay. So,
and just like an hour a day. I had that other business. I was homeschooling the kids. So I did about an hour or two a day for 6 months.
So when you say like you're trying to balance, that we were talking about. Okay. So you call like 4 hours a day over 6 months. And after that, you started trying a little bit more of paper leads. You also mentioned you tried mailers. Okay.
Yes.
So you closed the deal. So what was the downside?
I didn't have enough KPIs to prove to myself that it worked. And I do know it works. But by the time I was really kind of considering doing mailers more, my paid per leads were doing so well and it was so consistent that I wasn't hugely motivated to add in another marketing. I don't know if I don't want to call it lazy. Paid per leads was giving me what I needed. So, and I had really gotten it to a place that I was happy with. So I just kept going with it.
Thank you for sharing that. And so you mentioned you are mostly pure on PPL like for the last 12 months. So what's the like total spend on marketing right now you have per month?
Right now I'm like at 6,000 to 7,000 a month. Okay. Probably, this time last year I was at about 3,000, maybe 4,000. And it's more because I could go up, but my small little team that's sort of our like limit. We're all moms, we're all stay-at-home moms. And so that's sort of like where we've realized like this gives us the deals we need. And this is the number of leads we need coming in. So we're at a pretty sweet spot right now for where we all need to be.
How much did you total earn over the last 12 months in real estate?
Last year was really I've been consistent since January. Last year was still me learning to wholesale full time. Okay. So I had like a great month. I made like 50,000 in fees in July and then nothing in August and September. So it was very roller coaster, where this year has been way more steady. And for me personally, because I don't take home everything because I do have the partner, but I've been at about 25,000 a month every month this year so far, 2025.
Okay, so let's talk a little bit more about iSpeedtoLead right now.
Yeah.
So how did you initially find out about us?
I cannot remember if it was through Rain or just through an investor friend.
So what would you say are maybe 2 things that you like about us so far?
I love your guys' platform a lot. It feels to me it's very user friendly, and I really like all the information on it. And then, like I told you earlier, like I have loved the coupon club. I've had some really great deals out of it. I like that it's just quick and easy. I can go in and be like, oh, I can buy 5 leads today. Especially if we're having like a little bit of a slower week, I just hop on and put my counties in that I buy in, and I'm like, oh, sweet, there's 5 more popped up for me. So Anna, who's my partner, and I, we've really enjoyed the coupon club a lot.
Do you have any specific criteria how you select leads? I know I asked that, but anything more you like to share, or you just buy whatever pops in your area?
I won't buy on market leads, but otherwise I've got a guy that I'll partner with if it's a land lead. And so we'll go 50-50 on the deal. So I buy, I really will buy anything that pops up as long as it's not on the market.
What are the results on Coupon Club right now? How many contracts, how many deals, how much money? And
Yeah, so I've closed 3 deals and I have 2 under contract. The 3 I've closed, I believe I think it was 15,000, 15,000 and 20,000. And then the ones under contract are looking to be at a $50,000 fee. And then what is the other one? Oh, that's like a $5,000 or $10,000 one. That's a small one, but that's fine.
are all of them in the same county, or is it multiple counties? Is it
A couple of different counties, but they're within the 3 counties that I only work in.
okay?
And one's like a mobile home that's got to be trashed. It's on land, and one is like a nice house that someone inherited, and one was a rental. Just a tired landlord. No, two of them were tired landlords, and then another one was just an elderly couple that needed to downsize.
And I know we spoke a little bit more about scripts, but what's your script look like right now? Because I know we have different sources. So you mentioned that you're opening, you probably go from whatever lead source it is, but where does it go next? Like, do you open and, hey, this is Lauren with so and so? Are you still considering to sell your house for cash? Yes, no. How does it go next? What do you do next?
Yeah, we don't have a written script, but we do I would say we follow the same kind of rhythm or pattern. And I stay very hesitant. Like, hey, this is Lauren. I grew up in Lenore City. I want them to immediately know I'm local, especially with the coupon club, because they're getting a lot of calls and most people aren't local. So that's just one advantage I have is I'm like, hey, I grew up in Lenore City. I had gotten a message from Josh. He's one of our partners, and he had mentioned you might be interested in an offer on your house in Maryville. Was that right? So I stay very, very hesitant. Like, did I get this right? Did I mess it up? Yeah, but I've just gotten a lot of calls like, oh man, I'm so sorry. I'm not trying to bother you at all. But I'm just curious, are you still interested in selling? Like, is that something you're still considering? And usually by that point, they've softened up to me a little bit. And then I don't ask anything about the house. I just say like, so tell me, are you from Knoxville? Like, yeah, I was born and raised here. Oh, that's so cool. Where'd you go to high school? Or whatever. I just start to talk about local things that I know. And so trying to find that connection point, and maybe it's that their dad was a civil engineer and my dad's a civil engineer. Like, no way, your dad worked for that company. Mine did too. So I really don't go into the house for almost as long as possible. I don't talk about the property. I really try to get to know them, try to connect to them, try to talk to them about things we both love and both have in connection. And then I'll pull it back, or, pull the conversation back to the house eventually. But that first phone call, I'm more just trying to earn their trust and relate to them.
And that's where I'm getting more even curious. And that's what's great, guys. I never closed a deal in my life, but on demos. So if you guys meet us, I hope our account executives are telling you the same, that you want to use things that make you different. If you're local, you want to use that. If you have some affinities, you got to use them. So this is great. But how do you do this transition then? Like and my understanding, do you give a cash offer on the first call, or you say like, I'll get back to you on that? How does this process look like?
Usually Anna that's my partner. She's making most of the calls now. We've loved having a partnership because you can almost blame it on the other person. Like, she's like, let me talk with Lauren. But whoever's on the phone, although I'm asking about trying to find similarities in their story or where they're from, I'm also steering the conversation towards what their problem is. So like, my wife just died. Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. What happened? And this was her childhood home. And like, I steer my questions and I steer their story towards the problem that's happening in life. Because obviously there's some kind of problem. That's why they need to sell it for cash. And then once we sort of get to like, if I can pull that out of them, the real problem, then I'm like, okay, so tell me a little bit, like, I know your wife passed away 2 months ago. Like, are you wanting to move out fast? Or are you kind of thinking you want this to be a little slower? And it's like, I want to be out tomorrow. Like, okay, so tell me a little bit about the house. And that's how I'll steer the conversation towards the home, but I'll take it through their problem first before I get into specifics about the house. And I'll make it about them. When do you want to move out? What are you kind of thinking? What's making you think you might want to stay? You know, if you were to stay, or what's making you think you might want to move? I make it all about them and their preferences. And then we usually take down all the basic information, and we'll say something like, here's where we're at. Like, we can often do offers over the phone. We always try to pull out a ballpark figure first. Doesn't always happen, but we try. And then Anna will say, all right, I'm going to talk with Lauren. We're going to run some numbers. I'll call you back tomorrow and chat with you about our offer. So we keep it very casual and sort of like you're my grandma's neighbor, you know, like someone. That's how we treat people, is like, I might not know you directly, but you're still a friend of a friend.
And you will call them back with the offer, like you or Anna would call?
Anna calls back. Whoever had that first conversation always calls back. And Anna will often, let's say the person didn't give us a ballpark, so we have no idea where they're at. I'll have her come in a little low, and I'll say, just gauge their reaction, Anna. And if they're like, oh my gosh, there's no way, then Anna will say, like, listen, I know I told Lauren, I had a feeling that would be way too low. We both really love this house. We want this to work. Like, can you give me a ballpark that I can take back to her? Like, what would be the lowest that would make this work and make it worth it to you? Because I want to give her something to go off of, and let me see if I can talk to her. You know, so we kind of, it makes Anna not have to be the bad guy, right? She can always kind of blame it on me, like, Lauren came in too low.
But the person who is calling, he'll be following up, right? And just blame it on the person who is not there. Okay.
Yes. That's how we kind of operated. And that gives us a little bit of, when it's hard to pull that number out of someone, that 2-person relationship makes it easier. You know, Anna doesn't have to be the bad guy ever coming in real low. She can just say, this is where Lauren's at on it, but let me see if I can talk with her, and let's just see if there's any way we could go up a little bit.
And you mentioned you don't ask about the house a lot. So how do you put your numbers typically? I know you probably know the area by this time right now, but what's the process there?
We do ask a decent amount of questions. I mean, you know, your typical like roof, HVAC,
Sure.
You know, what's the inside like? Has it been updated? Has it not? Is, you know, those kinds of things. So yes, we do get a basic, but again, you know, any kind of rehab over the phone, it's sort of a ballpark figure. You're like, that's 20,000 probably, or that one's 75,000. And there's definitely times where they don't tell us everything, and we get it under contract and we do have to renegotiate back down because there was a massive amount of termite damage. They didn't tell us about that. But in general, like Anna and I, we really try not to renegotiate. We don't want to do that to people. Now it happens often, right? But it's usually because the seller didn't tell us something, not because we really came in with the wrong number.
How does those conversation go? So you call them back and say, hey, we had this inspection and unfortunately, or how does that typically go?
Yeah. So, you know, hey, we got our contractor in there, and we'll actually usually give them, like, we were estimating it was going to cost around 40,000 and he's telling us 70. Like, I know you can't come down 30,000, but for that, like, we truly can't lose money. Like, Lauren and I, we're both moms. Like, we really, really want to help you, but we also just can't afford to like not make money on this. So like, would you be able to meet us in the middle? You know, like, would you be willing to come down? We can make it so we make a little bit less profit and we can still make this work, but would you be willing to meet us in the middle? Something like that, where we try to actually show them true numbers and be truthful of like, this is what, based on our conversation, we thought it would be this, but now that our contractor's been in there, it's actually this because we found blah, blah, blah.
And since you mentioned you are willing to take less. So with iSpeedtoLead, you have 3 deals, 2 under contract, 3 deals that you closed. They were pretty consistent. So it's like 20, 15, anything unusual you like to tell about those deals? So we're like, just those were like cash offer, easy, done. And my next question is, those deals at like 5K, are like pre-story, why it's kind of on the lower side, and obviously on 50,000 one, what's the story there? without telling, of course, addresses or anything like
Yeah,
that.
that's okay. Yeah, our average fee is usually like 15 to 17. So those first three in iSpeed were pretty consistent, and one of them was hard. It was an owner finance deal, and the lady just got really hard to talk with. I think sometimes in those creative finance deals, they can get a little sticky because you're working out those, those details that aren't present in a cash transaction. And then the bigger deal, the 50,000 deal, that one was really rural. And so we got it under contract at a price I thought was okay. And then I have a realtor if it's a little iffy of a house and the comps aren't great, I'll have my realtor run the numbers, and he came back a lot lower than I did. And I was like, crap, we're going to have to negotiate these guys way down. I truly did not think they would. I thought they would want to terminate with us. But as I've noticed with some of my rural leads, they're just hard to wholesale, right? The investors don't want to be rural. And so we got him way down, like way down on his sale price. And then I sent it out to my end buyers, and I knew it would make a great house hack for someone. I knew it wasn't a great flip. Well, I just had this realtor that was like, this is exactly what I want. And I had put the higher, price on it just to see at first. And it was just the perfect house. It's just exactly what she needed and she's going to use it as a house hack, exactly what I thought it would be perfect for. And she's going to it's an incredible deal for her. But everyone's getting what they're wanting. Like the sellers still got what they needed. They're going to go pay cash for a house somewhere else. And then she got it. And it was one of those, I truly didn't know if we were going to be able to move it or not. I was like, we might have to even terminate at this lower price. It was such an iffy deal because it was so far out, and it was on 9 acres, and it was a giant old house. And then the lower priced one, oh goodness, that deal, I'd say we've been working it for 7-8 months, and it's like a ton of errors. So everyone has to sign off on it. And some of them live in Poland, and there's a squatter on the property, but we can't get her off until everything's been quit claimed. It's a messy one. And it's honestly probably not been worth the time we've put into it. But the older man we've been working with is just so sweet. And he's had like 18 family members die in 2 years, and he's so overwhelmed. So this has sort of been one of those, like, we just really care for you and want to get this off your plate. And we're really not going to make our money back on it. But just no one has been willing to help him to the end. And we've truly put in a lot of effort to help him get this to the end. So those are the stories on those.
I mean, props to you for making all the leads work and every deal work and not quitting. So, but that's been so far amazing story. So again, shout out to Women Real Estate Investing Network, and shout out to Lauren. How people can reach out to you if people wanna do GV with you, get some of your advice? Are you active on social or not really?
I am not super active on social. I do have just a business page, mostly for my sellers, like making sure I'm not a scam, showing them. But I do have it. You just reach out through email. It's lauren@shilohlandandhome.com. That's my business email.
Reach out to Lauren for any advice. Sounds like she has a great way of building rapport with sellers and making things right. Even sounds like you did also creative things and other stuff, which is great. And thank you for being iSpeedtoLead client and PPL client, and looking for you to close more deals with us. Nice to see you.
Thank you.